We are going to start, guys. So, in 1, 2, going live. Hey everybody, I'm Randy Apuzzo, CEO of Zesty.io. I'm here with Andres Galindo, who is a senior React developer, and Zoshua Colah, who is the senior product designer. Today we're going to be walking through the new Schema app changes. We are expecting this to go out within the next 1 to 2 weeks. You'll be getting it. There'll be a blog post coming out on this particular topic, so you get heads up for that. But what we want to do here is have a chance to talk through the changes, look at the way the old interface was and the way the new interface is, and get the opportunity to talk to a couple of seniors and hear why changes were made and how it works. So just to get started, this is the new schema view. And while we're looking at this, Andres, can you show us the old homepage schema view?
Pleasure.
So there's quite a bit of a difference there. Zosh, can you tell us why we changed the way you first experienced schema?
Yeah. So we actually began the project by reviewing, past customer feedback and then actually interacting with customers to learn what can change. And the old schema experience, the homepage of schema, if you could go to it, Andreas, was the create model page. And customers had actually requested to see a full list view of the models they have because that's what they're expecting to see when they come to schema. And they only want to see a create new content model view if they want to create a new content model. It shouldn't always be there as the home page. And so they just want to see a list of their models. So that's why now if you go to the new schema, you'll see you can now view all the models within your instance, and you can get some key insights about them, such as the total fields for each model and the content items for them. This makes it easier for you to find what models you need, and in future iterations we'll also add tabs so you can quickly just navigate between your headless dataset model, your multi-page model, and your single page model.
Very cool. Thank you, Zosh. So yes, this is an interactive table, Andres.
Correct. We can sort by name, sort by model type, even sort by last updated.
Very nice. And then for that as well, can you filter by search? Is that search models a actual search filter?
It is indeed.
Awesome. So one thing I noticed is the original schema prompted you to create a model. How do you create a model now?
So to create a model, there are actually two ways to go about it. The first way to go do it is if you're on the on models page, you can click on the big fat, create model button in the top right hand corner. So if you click on it, Andreas, you'll notice that we have three options now. So let's assume I want to make a multi-page model. You can click on next, and then you can just go ahead and type in your new model name. Let's assume you're going to call this some new name. And you can also set in your model parent.
This is also searchable.
That's
Yes.
nice.
And then after that, you could scroll down. And yeah, you can decide if you want to list this model or not. And a listing model basically means if you wanted to show in content, and you can immediately go ahead and click on create model. And there we go. We've just created our first new model.
So let me stop you here because awesome, thank you. We just hit a new interface. So this is the new landing page of a model when you first get into it. This looks quite a bit different than the old one. And Andres, can you pull up the old interface here? So what we just compared to is there's a lot of text here, right? And you're
Mhm.
viewing this at what 1280, 1300-ish width, right? So that
Correct.
this model creation experience that you see here has been replaced by one we just saw. But when we get into the base of a model, can you just click into a model maybe on the left, like auto layout might not have anything? Yes, so let's see if we can get to like more of an empty one like this right here. Yeah, so this would be the base entry. Granted there's 3 fields here, but this is the base entry That's a good
Yeah.
one. This just has one field. So this would have been the base entry of a model when you first went to it. So go ahead and jump into the new interface and I'll ask a few questions about this. So this is a brand new interface. There's no fields, right? I could see on the right there's a reference name, a zoo, a description. There's some documentation links, which is great to see. And then you have this kind of explainer text, Zosh, in the center.
Mhm.
And then there's a button that's like embedded. There's two add the fields. Does that explainer text button actually work?
Yeah, it actually does work. You can click on it. So if you click on add field, you can add a field right from there itself. And it's going to open up a model that allows you to browse through all the various fields in Zesty, and you can select one of these and then move forward. So if you want to add a single line text, for example, you can go ahead and add that in immediately. So let's say we're going to call this some new field.
It's a much cleaner interface. Nice work with the design.
Thank you.
Awesome. Could we? And I see that it itself looks like a new, say, cleaner interface.
Mhm.
How do you expand the options of the field you just created?
So if you go ahead and actually just click on the field itself. So if you click on the field, or you can also click on the three dots and you can edit the field as well. Both of them is going to allow you to actually, learn more about the field if you ever need to edit it.
Okay, can you click edit for me there, Andres? Cool. So it brings you up to a very similar um, interface with just similar options. Awesome.
Yes.
With the addition of the ability to deactivate the field.
From there, I noticed too there was an accelerator from the triple drop down to also deactivate, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And I also see rules and learn. So I know for this iteration, rules are not going out, or are some rules going out?
We don't have any rules planned for text at the moment. We only have it for the media field,
Okay.
where in media you can limit, how many files can be added into a media field, and I think we also have another rule for media. But yeah, primarily we've not yet introduced rules, but it'll be in a new iteration, and that's going to allow users to say this field must have unique values. There should be a default value, limit the character count. You'll be able to do all kinds of rules, and we'll also add regex over time.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Andreas, can you click on learn? So this is specific to, it looks like this is specific documentation to a text field. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So one of the main reasons we've added learn is always so that you know what this specific field type is. So if you're a new developer, like you joined the company later on and you're trying to understand what this field is, you can always come here and understand what its purpose is. And maybe sometimes you're working in so many different systems as a developer. So coming back here and always referencing this helps you also understand how you should be using this field if you ever realize like, hey, I was working on this, but now I'm not sure why I did what I did. You can always come to learn and take a review of the documentation again.
Very cool. So there is literally documentation on all the field types in its own specific way. Very
Yep.
cool. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, can you click out of this, Andres? Can you add another field? Let's add a media field, for example.
We do not have media at the moment.
All
It's not
right.
finalized.
So hence we're still flight and development. Well, how about you select one
Mhm.
to add to show us?
Let's do a number.
So before you go, I see that there's the Learn tab now next to also rules here. So if you click Learn, that's going to give you contextual learning information
Yep.
for that field. Very cool. And then if you wanted to back out, I notice there's a back arrow. If you're working on this, there's the ability to back out.
Yep. So if you like by mistake, let's say you selected a wrong field or you realize midway as you're making a field, like, hey, actually I shouldn't be using that field, you can select another one. And another thing which you've added is that if you hover over these
Yeah,
fields,
can you go slower,
learn
Andres?
more
You're
about them.
moving pretty quick. All right, so yeah, so go ahead, Zosh. So if you hover over,
So if you hover over it, you can immediately get to know that, okay, this is an integer field. You get to know what it's usually used for. You can also then go ahead and learn, let's say you're hovering over maybe date, for example. Um, you'll immediately learn what is the date field for and what, you'd use date and time for as well. So you can always hover over it, and understand the purpose. So if you go over date and time, now you'll notice that the key difference is that, Andrej, could you hover over date and time?
He is. Oh, date
Oh,
and time. Sorry. Yep.
yeah. So you'll notice, like, immediately we've gone ahead and described what the key differences, and we've said what the different common uses are. And out here we are saying you can not only, like, add in a day, but you can also add in that time, the start, like, let's say, a particular shipment time, not just a shipment date. So those kinds of details can come in, and that's why we have that tooltip that tells you more about a field before you add it in, because otherwise, you may not be sure what you're adding in per se.
Awesome. And yeah, go ahead and proceed adding another field so we can see what it's like to have multiple fields.
We also have another accelerator here called add another field. So as you're finishing up one field, I can click on that. That'll create the field and it'll instantly prompt me to create an additional field. I'm assuming this helps when a user is quickly adding multiple fields to fill in a model. Let's
Yeah,
go ahead and do
that's nice.
UID. Okay.
Can you go back to add one more time?
So yeah, we can also showcase the ability to add between fields. So let's go ahead and add one between some new field and some new date. So if we click on this middle divider, we can go ahead and add a multi.
So can you go back before you add multi?
Sure.
So just to focus on this, it looks like there's a lot of field types. Is there any new field types, or is this the same field types Zesty's always had?
At the moment, these are, the same field types that Zesty's always had. We've deprecated one field type specifically, which is the article writer. So that's been deprecated, but other than that, these are actually all the field types that always existed within Zesty.
Now my blog it's old on Zesty, and I use Article Writer. That will still be supported, just so the audience who's watching knows that Article Writer still be supported. We're just not going to have people add it going forward in the future. And I noticed there's also a filter here too. Is the filter just on the name, or how do you use the filter, Andres?
So yeah, if you wanted to, like, let's say you wanted to search for a particular field, and in fact, this is, always going to be active when you're adding a field in, so you can, like, quickly, like, just search. Let's say you want to add multi-line, you can just search multi-line. And you can add multi-line text field in. You can even search for, let's say, media. You can search for file, for example, or media, and you can add it in.
Yeah, another thing would be add is if that filter can also filter the description. That'd be
Yep.
nice. That way, if you type file, it catches in the description. Cool. So we had from chat, we have a comment says, in the learn section of field, can we add a dev talk section that will quickly let a dev know how the data is being outputted, whether it's a text string, number, integer. So I think what she might be saying is that in addition to the learn section, or inside the learn section, maybe just saying how the actual output is, like if it's going to be a
Understood.
numeric or a string.
Understood. We could definitely add that, and that's great feedback to learn.
Cool.
I'll note that down as well.
It's great for more complex field types such as relationships, drop downs, to really see how those get created in the backend.
Right, because a lot of people don't recognize or wouldn't know, say initially off the bat, that a one to many is going to give you a comma separated string of zooids, whereas a one to one will give you a string zooid. That would be useful. Awesome. All right. Well, let's go to the interface. And so I know, like, historically in the old interface inside of Zesty, so if you click back to the old interface, and go into a schema now that has multiple items. So I know that the sorting of the items was always a bit finicky, especially as you have a lot of items. We know that some customers have some models that have 40 fields, right? Some have more than that. Some have two. But I also know that we've had feedback that if there's a lot of fields, that drag and drop, that was an issue. So tell me about, Andres, this is for you, is that was a challenge to solve, right? So go back into the new Schema application and just talk us through, like, as a React developer, how did you address the drag and drop issue?
Yeah, great question. So the drag and drop issue was multifaceted. One, there was the UI performance issue of how we are rendering the drag event. So as I drag here, as you can see, it is updating the list in the background, so it's clear where the user is dragging. So that brings in a lot of performance implications, especially with very large lists. A performance issue that we really weren't tackling in old Schema. So when we had large lists, the dragging was very, very slow and sluggish. The other part that was a challenge to this is the actual way we perform the reordering. So when we reorder, we actually have to update every single field and update their order value. Which means that if you have, again, 100 fields, that means 100 API calls that you need to do upon
That's
a
a lot.
sort. That is a lot. It's so many that to the point where it will break users' browsers. So we implemented a batching system, which, given n amount of API requests, it would split it up in chunks of n. In our case, we're sticking with the chunk of 10. So we can reliably split up the amount of work and make sure that we can get it all done. As well as doing it in the background, because if you see in the previous schema, when you did a sort, you would have this whole loading state, which would kind of take you out of the view, and it'll be quite jarring. So here we really aim to remove that and just make the backend separate from the UI and just sync them up together once there's the time to sync has come.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So I remember you mentioning, was there a specific query library you use for, like, the querying library or the request library? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the request library or the query library that we use is RTK Query. They've become quite popular, especially React Query. This helps us really abstract a lot of the nuances when it comes to data fetching, which ultimately allows us to not worry about those nitty-gritty details and focus more on how we kind of achieve these more complex user flows. This layer also provides us with error handling, success handling, and even more importantly, aborting. So one big challenge here was having two sorts right after another, and being able to abort the previous one. Now, aborting requests have notoriously been very tricky, but using systems like these, it makes it a lot easier to do so.
Yeah, I imagine if you did a double drop, like, why the interface had to disappear before is if you tried to do a drop after that, you'd have inconsistent sorting orders and things would just be a wreck, depending on the speed of a
Correct.
request, right? So with this
Correct.
now, it's able to manage and get the requests. It cancels all the prior requests, right, and then runs a re-update, which is excellent to
Yep.
hear. Cool.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that. So let's just walk around the interface now, Zosh, and I see a little caret next to all field types. What does that caret do next to the title?
Got
Yep.
it. So that basically allows you to quickly, one of the key requests we had was users wanted to be able to quickly duplicate a model, as well as, sometimes they want to get to a certain task, like quickly copying the ZUID or going ahead and let's say renaming it. So now we've added that capability as well, so you can quickly rename it. So let's say we want to rename it to maybe we wouldn't want to rename this one, but let's say we want to select something else, maybe.
It's okay. Is there something special that happens on a rename?
Um, Nope,
Okay.
nothing special per se. It's just a normal rename. So as you put in a new name, you will now notice that the reference name does not get updated, and that's intentional because what we want to do is we don't want you to have your reference name update if you've already connected it to you're using an API endpoint. You don't want all your experiences to break. So if you update the display name, only the display name updates. The reference name won't automatically get updated. you'd have to intentionally go ahead and update it, and we will give you a warning saying that, hey, beware that it could break some experiences of yours if you're using these API endpoints in production.
Awesome. Can I see like the warning exclamation mark there? Take a note for that
Yes.
paragraph starts. That'd be awesome. Cool. Thank you for that. I see there's a couple shortcuts. There's edit and code, which I imagine is going to bring you to the code version of this, right?
Yes.
Jump in the code. Okay. And
Yep.
then go
So
ahead and hit.
that's also another accelerator where we learned was that people want to go ahead and quickly jump to different apps that are connected to this
Mhm.
model. So like let's say you want to jump to code to the to the code file for this particular model in code, you can now quickly do that, and you can even create a new content item quickly from Schema itself. So if you want to create a content item, um, you
Nice.
just go ahead and say for this model, I want to use this model. I want to create I want to create an item, using this model per se, and you can go ahead and do so.
Cool. Can you show me the info tab, Andres?
It is under construction at the moment.
Okay, awesome. Are we expecting the info tab to be released with the phase one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What's going to be in the info tab, Zosh?
Yeah. So in the info tab, you'll be able to basically view your details about the model, such as the model name, the model's DOID, your reference ID, and the description. And what you'll also be able to see is who's gone ahead and who created this model, when was it last updated, who updated it. And you'll also get to see a breakdown of all the fields that are in it. So you'll get to know, okay, I have 10 text fields, I have 2 image fields. So you get insights, which help you understand a little bit more about your model per se.
Awesome. So to continue going through the actual interface here, there's a new interface on the left. So you have search models, which I imagine
Yes.
is a filter for the navigation. Can you just show us how that works real quick?
Actually, if you type in text, let's say you search for auto
Hmm.
and you hit enter, you'll get a dedicated search page.
Ah, got it. So instead of filtering the navigation, it brings you to that general and it tells you the
Yeah, we have a
fields.
dedicated search page so that you can get all the insights you need before you go in. Because sometimes you could have models with similar names
Hmm.
and you're not sure, like maybe you have a landing page one, landing page two, and over time you start creating a lot of landing pages, and you need to just usually maybe looking at the last updated as well, so you get that extra information if
Right.
you have like this bigger screen per se.
Is the updated based upon the model being updated or the items?
The model being updated.
Okay. The other thing is I see a caret. So on the left navigation, there is a caret drop down.
Yes, you can actually now sort your models. So we have single page models out here. You can sort them alphabetical order, last created. And the thing which we've introduced out here is that once you like apply this sorting, this is your default sorting when you come in next time as well,
Hmm.
until you change it. And the reason why we've done this is because we want to like be consistent with the design patterns that we implemented for media, where we learn from customers that they'd like to, preserve their default sorting order based on their last choice. So they always want it to be the same when they return as well.
Are you using cookies to do that?
You're
Or
using
local
local
storage?
storage.
Local storage. Cool. And are the plus buttons accelerators to get a little bit further down the path of creating a model?
The plus
Correct.
button is actually to go ahead and create a single page model or create a headless data set model or multi page model per se.
And can you show me the difference between that plus button and the create model button top right?
Yeah, so the create model top button, you need to select a model type until moving forward to actually filling it in. This one will preemptively select the model type.
So the key
Awesome.
difference is that when you go to create model, you are choosing the type. And when you're doing it from this left sidebar, you're saying, okay, I want to create a headless data set. So you don't have to choose a type.
Cool.
It's pre-selected for you.
Awesome. Zosh, is there any, we're going to move into a Q&A. That way we can just kind of wrap up the body of it. But is there any specific thing you wanted to point out before we move into a Q&A?
One more thing which I just wanted to point out and discuss is that we will be introducing more tabs, over time. And those tabs are going to be very insightful. So we're going to have a dedicated API tab. We're going to have a dedicated activity log tab as well, so that you can quickly know what changes were made to a particular model. And I think that's going to be really useful. And we'll also have a dedicated learn tab. So just the way you saw a learn tab for each field, we'll have a learn tab, within each model. That way you can quickly view documentation that could help you out.
Okay. Did you say the info screen, is that going to include the total items and total fields?
Yes,
Okay,
that is
awesome.
going to include that information.
Thank you.
I
And
also
you'll
want
also
to
be able
add.
to see the related models as well. In fact, you'll be able to see which models like
Oh,
this
that's going to be
model is
nice.
connected to.
Send like a hot link to those models.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
cool. Yeah, I'm very excited for that. Andres.
Yep. I also want to add that the duplicate model flow and functionality has been updated. Previously, when you would duplicate a model, it would actually also bring in the deactivated fields. And
Not good.
yep. And even worse, it would not show them as deactivated. It would be actually activated in the newest model. So with the duplication now, we are fixing that. And we're also using the new batching system. So duplicating large models proved to have a lot of performance issues, and in some cases crash the browser. Now we're free of that issue.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. We'll get a little crowd cheer in the background. Now we're going to move into a QA session. So I have a few questions that I just want to wrap. So that was an awesome review. We will be posting that review on the blog post that will be coming out announcing Schema. Thank you both for all the hard work, and also the rest of the team that was also involved in building the Schema app. So a question we have from the audience is, when does the sorting order for the fields get updated after a sort action has taken place? Is there a way for a user to know if a sort has been successful? And Andreas, I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, we have an optimistic approach to the sorting. So once we do the sort, it will optimistically render the new view. If for some reason it did fail, we will sync up to the failed state and it would pop it back up. So like the sort wouldn't actually go through. So the way you would see it fail is that the sort would be reverted, is how you would see it fail.
Got it. So there's no toaster or any information. The user just
Nope.
like, this works.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
So going back to the old schema, let's take a look. There's some functionality on the right-hand side. There's a model settings. Let's look at that. So
Yes.
those are all covered now.
Those go into the model info tab now.
Okay, that's going to be model info tab. Okay. Duplicate models now underneath the drop down, the flyout.
Right.
And then if you scroll up to, you have edit items, activate instant API. I think Zosh, if I remember, the API is going to have its own tab in phase 2,
Yes,
right?
it's going to have its own tab, and you'll be able to access, you'll be able to understand, first of all, our like the variety of different ways you can access just data in Zesty. So we'll not just list out the instant API, but we'll discuss the other APIs you could also use to just get data in general.
Awesome. Well, that's been an excellent recap. Very excited and what is the target date? Let's say I'd ask Zosh that, or maybe Andres knows better, but what are we looking at target date?
I think we're looking at, I would assume end of February, maybe early March would be a target date. At the moment, as you can see, we are getting closer and closer to building version 1, which will be releasing soon. But we're also going to be doing a bit of QA to ensure that things are working. So one of the main things we prioritize at ST is we want to ensure that we've, tested for all the bugs before we release. That way, our customers don't go through, because it's really important that customers never face a bug.
Awesome. And as with any release, if you're a user of Zesty and you want to reach out to our team, if you have feedback, we're open ears, and we can direct you to Zosh. So you can just go through a support channel, and then our support team can connect you with Zosh to give any active feedback. So I want to thank Andreas and Zosh, both of you today, for doing an excellent job here, and the rest of the team that's been
Thank you.
involved in building Schema. And thank you to the people who tuned in, asked questions, and have an excellent day, and we'll see you soon.